These next ones were really good. So one of these is on balance, like assessment and then strategies for treatment. And then the next one I'll talk about kind of goes together, but it's like gait changes, impact of aging on functional ability and gait. So there was a lot of balance stuff in this too. So again, these are just, I pulled like tidbits of information that I thought was helpful. So strength, as you age, between the age of 30, we all know that strength decreases, but your strength and muscle mass decline 30 to 50% over this 50-year period. So you get a decrease in strength, muscle power, force production, endurance, fast twitch motor units decrease. Key joints that are affected are hip abductors, hip extension, and knee extension, which we all know is really important for walking and stability. So if you get inaccurate activation of these muscles, you start to develop those abnormal synergies and gait patterns. So strengthening, as we know, is really important. So then she asked the question, well, how intense? If we're going to strengthen somebody, how much do you need to do? In order to increase strength, you need to do at least 60% of the maximum available strength. So a 60% threshold is somebody can do 15 reps at a perceived rate of exertion of 12 to 13, and an 80, if they're working at an 80% threshold, then 10 reps. And they should be telling you, I'm giving you this number somewhere between 15 and 17. But I feel like a lot of times here, the way that this struck me is because I feel like we just start with 10 exercises sometimes, and maybe that's not enough. And so maybe they need to do more. So really grading, using the RPE, asking them how hard it was for them, and making it the appropriate amount of challenge, or we're actually not doing them any good. So that was that. And then the next thing she talked about is like ambulation gait training. And I thought this was huge. So how many people have heard like, oh, if they can do 150 feet, they're fine? Like, I feel like I was told that all the time. They did a research study, I can't remember what, 2010. So it's a few years old, but there have been some research studies just shown where people went out and measured the distance needed to perform errands. So like going to the bank, going to the store, going to the pharmacy, whatever. And they found that the minimum standards for somebody to walk was like 1,800 feet, which really struck me because, I mean, on the cardiology floor, like, we're really focused on endurance, but usually we'll make a goal of like the 600-foot loop, and we're like, that's good enough. But if that person goes straight home and they don't have any other follow-up, and they don't do a walking program at home, then like they can't even like run an errand at 600 feet. So that affected me on writing goals, because the people that are going straight home, I'm trying to make their goals harder. Okay, this one's on outcome measures, and it's divided by setting. So this is assessing fall risk and balance. What is most appropriate for the acute setting? I circled these. So I feel like we do the DGI and we do the tug and some of these ones that are 3. So 4 means it's highly recommended for the setting, that you should do that balance test. 3 is recommended, so anything like 1 or 2, it doesn't really make sense for that setting. So in acute care, we should be doing like DGI, tug, which I feel like we're implementing, but then functional reach was another one. And I don't do the functional reach with people, but that's indicated in the acute care setting as something that would be good to do. So that was interesting. When you write, it's important to use outcome measures to write goals, and when you do write goals, it's important to use an outcome measure that has a minimal detectable change or a minimal clinically important difference. And so those are what you need to be using to write your goals, because sometimes I go, oh, if I got a 12 on this, like, they could probably get a 14 next time, but is that the correct NDC or NCID for that test? Like, we need to be using those things. And then I put in the functional reach here. So it tests the limits of stability by reaching forward. It takes less than 2 minutes to perform, but you do need some sort of tape measure. Cutoff score greater than 10 inches, or less than 10 inches forward reach, you're likely to fall. And then, so here's a demonstration of that test if anyone forgot. So you have them stand still against a wall, preferably. You measure where their middle finger is, and then you have them reach as far forward without taking a step. And then you can also do it in sitting if your patient can't get up. And there's some indices for CVA, vestibular, and spinal cord injury. So I just put that one in there because I feel like we knew the DGI and the TUG pretty well, but I don't feel like we really use this. And then when you go to document balance, instead of just documenting, because we have that good, fair, poor section, it would be better to kind of describe why it's good, fair, poor, and if you use one of these tests, you can say they use decreased balance as evidenced by a functional reach of 5 inches, and less than 10 is indicative of false. Or if you use the Berg balance, decreased balance as evidenced by a score of 47. So using your outcome measures to justify their impairments. And then these are some treatment ideas that I had never really thought of before. And I just pulled a couple that were done in supine sitting and standing that I thought were good. So this is a core exercise that can be done in supine. So what she's done is the patient's laying down and they have a TheraBand around their legs, so it's kind of like they're in a straight leg position. And then she's having them do leg circles, like in a really slow, controlled motion. And the hands are not like pulling or anything, they're just stabilizing. And so I tried this. It's actually pretty challenging. So that could benefit a lot of people that are like laying and stuck in bed and can't really do core things and sitting or standing yet. So I thought that one was interesting. Here's a sitting core treatment idea. I mean, it might be more inpatient rehab appropriate, but maybe not. Like, so you put the TheraBand around their chest, and then you have them do like resisted, like sitting or side lying to sitting. That's a good lateral core exercise. And then this one, they have like the TheraBand tied to like a band, so they can do like a clock motion. They can close their eyes and do it. Transverse plane motions. So I thought, I mean, that's doable here. Like, it's a good one. And then she emphasized the importance of circuit training. So, like, if your patient can only sit, like a circuit training that would be good for them is like 2 minutes of rowing, 4 times supine to sit, 2 minutes of a PNF pattern, and then like repeat that. Like, it doesn't have to be a long circuit, especially patients in the ICUs don't have a lot of reserves. So like this circuit is like a 6-minute circuit and 1 minute rest in between. So there's a circuit, sit to stand activities, focusing on hip strengthening, that's important. This was like a little tidbit she said is plantar flexion weakness is going to affect push off like in walking. So if you did like sit to stand, repeat sit to stands, you could have them add going up on their toes so they come all the way up, and then they do a calf raise to get the gastroc strengthening. So that was a good exercise. Sit to stands with like adding, that's not what it says, but like she was saying, adding like holding water, like just making it a little harder, adding a task with it. Like they have to stand up and bend over and pick something up, and then just make it hard. And then she said 11 to 13 repetitions of sit to stands a day can increase outcomes in stroke patients. You want to increase the intensity, more circuit training. This is in standing. 2 minutes of sit to stands, 2 minutes of stepping, 2 minutes of sit to stands with hands on chair, wall squats. That's really hard one. Your patient has to be high level for that. And then she did sit to stands with resistance, so the TheraBand's around the trunk of the patient, and so you're standing behind them. So when they go to stand up, they have to push against the resistance. So I thought that was a good exercise. Oh, this is what I was talking about. They have to do task-specific activities, like do a sit to stand, take an immediate step without stopping. Sit to stand, shake your hands. Sit to stand with a glass of full water. Okay, so that was that course. And then the last one I think is a little shorter. But impact of aging on functional ability and gait. This kind of talks to the same thing, like doing an errand. So research study showing random or normal errands, daily errands that somebody might do. If you're a community ambulator, an errand is at least 300 meters, and I translated that to feet. That's 1,000 feet. So people that are going to go home and do errands need to be walking 1,000 feet. And they often perform 2 to 3 separate activities for a trip. So you don't usually go out and make one errand and go back home. Like you're usually out doing 2 to 3 things. You have to carry things while walking. You frequently encounter stairs, curves, and slopes, and there are frequent postural transitions, like changing directions, reaching up, moving backwards. Like, I know it's not always on the forefront of our minds to test people on these things, but if you're the last person they see before they go home, like, it might be kind of important if they're not going to have outpatient or home health follow-up. Okay, this is that community outing, a trip to the grocery store. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different studies. The lowest, 100 meters is the lowest here. So the average, I think, was somewhere in the 300 or 400s is where she got that 300 meters is the average here. Then there was this concept of life space. So how do you live your life? Like, what do you go and do? And there was a research study that shows those who don't leave their neighborhood without assistance have a 4.5% or 4.5 times higher risk of mortality than those without a restricted life space. So keeping people strong enough that they can get out and go and do the things they want. And they say a shrinking life space is a behavioral adaptation to declining physiological reserve and capacity. So the more you don't go and do things, the weaker you get. So you don't go out and do more, so you get weaker and weaker and weaker. So keeping people active is important. Energy reserve, that kind of was going with the life space thing. The more reserve you have, the more resilient you are. Oh, and she made the comment that many independent older adults function dangerously close to their maximum available energy during normal daily activities. So if you're not exercising, not increasing your capacity, then at some point, like, getting up and going to the bathroom becomes like, that's your maximal reserve and that's all you can do. So that idea of becoming weaker and doing less, and so you become weaker and you do less. And we've all seen this before. She was big on gait speed. What does gait speed mean? A lot of people are talking about making it like the 6th vital sign because it has so much correlation with mortality. So, greater than 1.3 is what we're going for. There's also norms for ages and gender, but 1.3 is kind of a cutoff. Oh, and this is in centimeters per second, so just move your decimal over. But men 60 to 69, you'd expect a 1.3, and it does decrease with age. But even an older, like 80 to 99, you'd still expect almost 1 meter per second. And I see a lot of people that walk slower than that. Like, I've started, since taking these, I've started measuring gait speed because it really does indicate, like, people who are a little bit more frail are not doing as much, and they get tired more easily. And so I've started writing goals for increasing gait speed, even if they might not be here for very long. But that was all my tidbits. So, any questions?